Hello. Okay, we're just going to give it a couple of minutes and we will just make sure everybody has had a chance to join properly. Okay, just getting a few more coming in. So I'm just going to give everybody about 1 more minute and then we can make a start, just so that everybody gets all the relevant information, doesn't miss anything. Okay, great. I think we will make a start. Thank you everybody for joining us today. So good afternoon and welcome. This is the first Now Teach information event of this academic year, which is exciting. My name's Talia and I am the career change lead here at Now Teach. And behind the scenes, I've got Maria with me and she's doing our tech and keeping everything running really smoothly. And I also have Phoebe, Joe and Rachel, and they are our career change specialists. And they're right there behind the scenes and they're ready to answer some questions for you, any questions that you have as they come up in the Q&A box. So we're all part of the team here at Now Teach, and I'm really pleased because I'm here talking to all of you, and we'll all hear from our guest speaker, Katie, and she'll introduce herself properly in a few minutes. But also on the panel with me, I have Charlie, she's actually from the team also here in Now Teach, and she helps run our programme. So she'll be here at the end to take any questions on what it's like to be on Now Teach and how we're really working hard to support career changes, and you know, during what's a time that's a really big shift in your working lives. So a quick note on asking questions. So at Now Teach, we're here to support you through this whole process. So wherever it is that you are in that process, there's loads of expertise on hand today and also in the coming weeks and months to make sure that if you transition, you're transitioning in your career, and that's as smooth and as informed as possible. So we want to make sure that we answer all of your burning questions. So do type them into the Zoom Q&A tab. So to avoid any confusion, the box labeled Q&A, not the box labeled chat. And our team are here to answer any of your queries. So we'll answer some of these in the Q&A box, and then a little bit later on, we'll put some of them to myself and Charlie and Katie. So yeah, so hopefully we'll be able to leave you lots more informed than you were coming into this. So we'd also really love to know a bit more about you and what you'd like to hear about. So there is some polls popping up on your screen, should be coming up. Oh yeah, there we go, in just a second. So I'm just going to leave those up for about 20 seconds and then we'll carry on. Okay, so today's event is all about how Now Teach can support you through your career change. At Now Teach, we want to see a world where children benefit because there's talented people who've already had successful careers become teachers, and they're able to bring their skills and experiences to the schools that that need them most. So to do that, we want to attract and recruit experienced people to change career into teaching in state schools, and we support our now teachers, training providers, schools and the wider education system to realise the full potential of the career changes in education. And we won't be able to cover every aspect of that today, but we do have an hour and we'll be able to tackle the key bits and hopefully delve a bit deeper into the process and give you all that kind of extra bit of information. So there's no better way to learn about what it is to be a now teacher than to hear directly from the cohort themselves. So there should be a video coming for you now where you can hear from them.
So I spent 30 years as a marketer.
I was a journalist and an author.
I was an investment banker.
I'd had a catering business for almost 30 years.
I've had a military career and then worked in consulting, and then I went into teaching.
I really felt like, okay, I've got like 10, 15 years left of working.
What should I do that makes me feel like I want to get out of bed every morning?
I found the retirement decision was a difficult decision to make.
I wanted to give back.
I wanted a challenge.
It's never too late to change careers. It's never too late to do something new. Let's give it a shot and see what happens.
My husband said, oh, at last, because I've been talking about it for years.
People telling me, you're really courageous, which I think in Britain is code for you're crazy.
The thing about us as career changers is you're bringing to the school environment a unique set of experiences that can only be valuable to their children.
Everybody's starting from scratch.
Every month you look back and feel, God, I've got a little bit better.
The kids are hilarious. They really are very funny.
I feel fully alive. I have purpose.
It's the most rejuvenating thing I could possibly imagine doing.
I can see the impact that I make on a day-to-day basis, knowing that I'm helping these kids prepare themselves for the future.
Excellent. So a special thanks there to the now teachers who gave up their time to make that film, and I'm sure you'll agree it's really valuable to hear from people who are in the network. So next I'm going to play you a message. And this is a message from one of our co-founders, Lucy Kellaway. And Lucy herself was a career changer, and she really understands all the unique benefits and the challenges of career changing.
Hello, I'm Lucy Kellaway. I'm the co-founder of Now Teach. I'm delighted to welcome you today. Really pleased that you are interested, possibly, in becoming a teacher. I set up this organisation together with Katie Wargrave 4 years ago because I suspected that there were people, maybe like you, and definitely like me back then, who were tired of their old careers and who wanted to do something more useful with their lives. It seemed to me that there was this huge waste of talent of people who had lots of experience of the world in general and wanted to become teachers, but nobody was helping them. Nobody was saying, yes, you know, the profession needs people like us and here's how you do it. So that was 4 years ago. I have now been teaching myself for 4 years. Look, it's been hard. Everybody said to me at the time, this will be the hardest thing you've ever done. I didn't believe them, but my goodness, they were right. But it was also, you know, if I wanted to do something useful, which I did, nothing could be more useful than this. Every single day that you're a teacher, even on a bad day, you leave school knowing that children know something that they didn't know that very morning, and that was because of the effort that you have made. So what could be more rewarding than that? Teaching isn't for everybody. Of course I know that. And maybe you're wondering whether it's for you. Well, I mean, the only ultimate test is sort of try it and see. But I can give you a couple of pointers, because obviously we don't want loads of people who are going to start doing it who then drop out. But I think there are two really important motivations, and if you have both of them, then this really might be right for you. The first one is that you yourself want to learn something new. You want to push yourself. You want the challenge of this. And that's a sort of selfish motivation, but my goodness, it will help you in the dark days in the January of your first year. But the other motivation is just as important. You need to want to do this for the sake of your students. If you have both of those, this really might be for you. But there are a couple of extra things too. You will be surrounded by teenagers all day long. If that doesn't excite you, then it's been very nice to meet you, but goodbye. Equally, you need to want to spend all day thinking about the subject that you're going to teach. You need to find it really interesting, because if you're not interested in it, neither will they be. Lots of other people will talk to you as you go through this about what we can offer, but in the end, we will help you find the right teacher training program for you, and in the end, we offer you each other. We all want to do the same thing. We all want to become better teachers, and nothing makes me as co-founder happier than that you are out there watching this video thinking maybe teaching will be the right thing for you. I hope it really is, and I hope to meet you one day.
So as I mentioned previously, that was Lucy, and she is one of our co-founders. So thank you, Lucy, for taking the time to record that message. So that leads us on really nicely to Katie, and now I'm going to hand over to her. She's one of our brilliant cohort members, and she's still right in the thick of it. She's still teaching and has some brilliant insights on what it's like to be part of Now Teach and the Now Teach network. So Katie, welcome, and thank you for being here, and I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, well, hello everybody. As Talia just said, my name's Katie, and I decided to become a teacher at the beginning of COVID, of all the clever decisions I've ever made. I'd wanted to be a teacher for a long time, and I'd been involved in education and working with young people in volunteer roles and various other roles, mostly through my business. So I worked for various pharmaceutical companies that had outreach programs, and I loved it, really. I just never had the confidence to make the leap before. So yeah, COVID came and we all panicked a little bit, and I decided that a career change was on the cards. I had been working in secondary schools beforehand as a cover supervisor. If you really want to test your mettle before you apply to become a teacher, that will kill or cure. It's a hard gig, that one. So if you're already doing that and you're still thinking about teaching, then definitely click the apply now button, because if you can survive that, you can survive anything. So I originally trained as a chemist. My degree was in chemistry, and I worked for pharmaceutical companies. Then I moved into health and safety. I've worked in human resources. I've also been self-employed as a gardener, bit of a random change. Went into schools, then took a tiny bit of time out before COVID and worked as a barmaid randomly. But then COVID came, and as I've said, I made the decision to train to teach. When I say I made the decision to train to teach, what I did was I half filled out an application form for teaching, and I half filled out a online sort of quiz thing for Now Teach. And then I went, ooh, am I really sure? And then I got a phone call from Charlie, actually. I think he's on the call right now. And she said, you've filled out this form and you haven't quite finished, and we've read everything that you've written, and it sounds like you'd be a really good teacher. Why have you not finished filling out the form? And I said, well, no, just not sure. And she talked me through what the options were. And this time we were quite late on in the year. And she just convinced me, look, just go for it. Apply, go for the interviews, then see how you feel. I can't imagine that you're going to feel any different to how you already feel, in that you've got a lot of experience, you'll be good. So I suppose the rest is history. I train part-time because I have 2 children who are now both teenagers. Lucky me. And I managed to qualify early. So I did a year of 2 days a week in school and 1 day online learning, which nowadays would be in person. was just COVID time, so we were all on Zoom. And then I managed to qualify in the February of my second year because I didn't have to do the training day. So I managed to do 3 days a week in school and get my hours correct that way. It was hard, as Lucy has said, but it was ultimately so rewarding. One of the sort of tips for talking today is to tell you a particular story about a student. I've got so many, I could bore you for hours with my student stories. I don't even know where to start, to be perfectly honest, because Lucy's right. You have, some days you just sort of think, oh, what am I doing? And this is so hard. And how am I going to get these students on board? And actually, one day you just turn up and it's happening and it's just working. And you may know how it worked, you may not. They may have just come round to you. It might be something that you've done, something that you've changed, but you've done that. And yeah, when you walk out of a classroom and just say, thanks, miss, that was a great lesson today. You just feel really good, because you might have got to the end of your hour and think, oh, that was just a disaster. It just takes one student to go, thanks, miss, I enjoyed that. And you go, oh, yay, I did something good with my day. So yeah, I think the reward definitely outweighs any of the sort of difficulties. The difficulties will be things like if you don't have teenagers of your own, or you're not used to working with teenagers, they're very different to when I was a teenager. You'll need to adjust your expectations a little bit, which when I first started training, I said, no, how ridiculous. Everybody can get top grades in everything they do, and everybody should face front and everything else. It's not like that. There's a huge learning curve in what you think students should be doing and what they're able to do, actually. And you come across a huge variety of students with needs that you can't possibly imagine right now, but it's all the rich tapestry of life, I suppose. And yeah, you find your niche. So I've trained in a local secondary school. I live in Suffolk, so we're very, very small. Our school's about 600 pupils. I also did a B placement. Your training, you work in at least 2 schools during your training, and my second placement was actually in a pupil referral unit. So I went from sort of gentle, Suffolk countryside to quite hardcore kids with even more demand grounds. And if I'm being entirely honest, that's where I see myself going back to in a couple of years' time when I've completed my ECT years. Because that was truly rewarding. Maybe not the being sworn at all day, but certainly when they come to you and tell you stuff and, confide in you about really rough things that are going on in their lives, that personal reward is huge. So how have Now Teach helped me? Apart from Charlie convincing me to apply in the first place, they've also been fantastic support with really good online sort of webinars and things to support the training years. I think different training providers have very different expectations on their trainees, but Now Teach have been there with some fantastic guest speakers. I was thinking earlier today, my highlights have definitely been Tom Bennett for the behavioural stuff. He was absolutely fantastic. And at conference this year, listening to Doug Lemov again was really, really good. They've got some fantastic connections and they will support your learning. And the webinars they're usually early evening, which if you've got children and you're cooking dinner and stuff, sounds like it's going to be a nightmare, but it's not, because you can pop it on in the corner and carry on with your bits and still listen. It's fantastic. Now Teach have also been there when I've needed a friendly ear, shoulder to cry on, just checking that things are all going well, asking for support with assignments and things. And as a network of teachers, I've met loads of people from all over the place, online, in person, and just having that oh, I've had a rough day today, have you dealt with this? And they go, yeah, I did this and this happened. You think, okay, it's all going to be okay in the end. So yeah, Lucy's right, teaching isn't going to be for everybody, but I personally would recommend you give it a shot, because you're not going to know until you try. And if you've got this far, you're obviously interested enough to try that journey. So consider your options. I think part-time versus full-time wasn't just my family. I think full-time teacher training is really hard. People obviously do it and they get through it and they have to do it, and that's great. But if you're concerned about workload, then definitely investigate what part-time options are available to you, because I certainly have found it really beneficial in terms of reflecting and processing what's happened during my school day and my learning and how I can improve. But yeah, give it a go. I don't think you can regret it, honestly.
Thanks so much, Katie. So now you've heard from Katie, I'm just going to speak to some of the more logistical bits and pieces. But yeah, that was really helpful. Really good to hear your first-hand experience, and also how you've benefited from Now Teach support, and also how you're thriving as a classroom teacher, and especially in that pupil referral unit. That sounds like it was a bit of quite a tough gig. I'm just going to move on now. We will go back to Katie and Charlie, and we'll do a bit of a Q&A, so we'll delve into that. And that will mean that we get to answer more questions from you. But first, there are some questions that always come up, so I'm going to just preempt those, and just make sure that you're getting all that crucial information up top. So Katie, take a breather, and then you and Charlie will speak to some of the questions that are coming through. So everyone on the call today, you'll be at a slightly different point in your thinking. So we understand that, and we have a really bespoke approach to the way that we support you. But there are some questions that everybody has in common. So I'm just going to cover some of those. So firstly, how do I become a teacher with Now Teach? So first of all, just a quick overview of how we support you into teaching at Now Teach. So to reiterate, we don't run a teacher training program. We support you as career changes as you transition to teaching, and then you remain part of Now Teach throughout your entire career as a teacher. So we have an offer, and we support you in 3 ways. So firstly, our career change specialists support you with your initial teacher training application. So whether that's advising you on the Department for Education Apply service, or helping you to secure interviews through our partners, or coaching you on that interview process itself. Joe, Rachel, Phoebe and the team are really well equipped to support you and support people who are career changing at that kind of mid to later stage in their career. And the second part is, once you have secured a training place, and our program team will support you during the first 2 years. So that's your teacher training and your first year as a qualified teacher. So Charlie, who's with us today, is part of that team, and I know she'll be more than happy to speak to what that looks like a little bit later on. And thirdly, you also become part of the Now Teach network of hundreds of career changers. They're there to share learning and experiences with you as you train, and then for the rest of your career as a teacher. And I know Charlie will agree that Now Teachers say this is one of the best aspects of what we do. It's the community of people who are doing or have done just what you're trying to do. So next question is about what the process looks like. So it's 2 parts. You've got an eligibility check with our expression of interest form, and then you can complete a full registration by submitting a statement about your motivations to teach in your career. If it looks like this is the right fit for you, we'll invite you to a consultation, and we'll talk more about your motivations to teach with some kind of key competencies. There is an outcome to that consultation, and if you're proceeding to the next steps, you'll be invited to join Now Teach. We'll then support you, like I said before, in securing a training place with a training provider, and then you'll be on to the start of your teacher training itself. So also something we always get asked and always happy to support with is, what are the different training routes? So at a really basic level, there's two types of training programs. So there's university or school-based. With the uni-based, you will begin in a university setting with lectures and seminars and kind of complete 2 block placements at schools. And with the school-based, you would be in school and you would learn on the job from day one. You may step out of school for 1 day a week to do something in a different learning environment, but you are based in one school for the majority of that year, and then sometime in another school for contrast as usual. There's also 2 qualifications associated with teacher training. So there's the QTS, and there's also lots of acronyms, so I'll try and break those down too. So that's the qualified teacher status. So you have to have that qualification basically to teach in the school in England. That is your key thing that you want. And the PGCE, which is your postgraduate certificate in education, will be the one that I think lots of people will have heard of before, and that's an academic qualification. You do get this from a university-based route. You can get it from some school-based routes, but it's actually not compulsory. So it's the QTS that you need to become a teacher. You can become a teacher without the PGCE. So there'll be different things right for everyone. Our career training specialists will be more than happy to speak to you in more detail about what those are, like what your options are, and also to just help match your specific circumstances with the best package for you. And then we also usually get asked, are you eligible? So our form on the website will check your eligibility, but just to highlight, there are some legal criteria for teacher training and you have to meet those. So they're just on screen there. So Maths and English GCSE at C or above, with the option to take an exam if you don't have them, an undergraduate honours degree, and further criteria for subject eligibility is well, it's variable depending on your training provider, but either an A-level degree or significant relevant experience in your chosen subject will be required. And if you have overseas qualifications, you can apply to a government body called ENIC for a statement of comparability. They'll be able to check if how your qualifications match up. And again, if you need help with that, or you need a bit of a steer on how that works, our career training specialists can guide you through that. You won't be kind of alone during that process. So at which point it's worth doing a quick note on subjects as well. I'm sure lots of you will be wondering what subjects you can teach. So we do support trainees across subjects where they tend to be, but there does tend to be more initial teacher training positions available in certain subjects. So our team can discuss which subjects is the right choice for you, and that'll be based on your experience, your interests, and obviously your qualifications. There are shortages of teachers in particular subjects, and that's things like maths and physics and chemistry. And there are more training options available in those subjects. And importantly as well, and that will lead us on to kind of the next point, is they do attract a higher government bursary. So on that, financial support and what financial support is available is also will be an important question, I imagine. So changing career is most likely going to mean a change of income for lots of people. There are some government tax-free bursaries available. They vary. The higher bursaries are, as you can imagine, there for the shortest subjects, and they come up to £24,000. But again, when thinking about your skills and qualifications and experience, it'd be worth discussing this with a career training specialist to see what's the best fit all round for you. So all trainees do have to pay tuition fees for their training year, whether on university or school route, and student loans are available. So that's, I think, £9,250, the equivalent of a year of university fees, plus maintenance loans are available too. And once you gain QTS, you do enter the teacher salary scale. As a newly qualified teacher, you begin on a salary of at least £25,000 outside of London, and inside of London, that's £32,000. So hopefully that gives you some further context, a bit more information, hopefully some stuff that you didn't know and that will be really useful to you. So I do want to move on now to the Q&A part of this session. So I'm going to just start asking some questions. So I think there's a few kind of themes that always come through in these questions, things that everybody's really keen to know. I think one thing that is being asked, and I think would be, Charlie, would be really interesting for you to answer this, and Katie, if you could kind of jump in maybe with some of your experiences as well, is what do you think the biggest benefits of career changing with Now Teach are?
Yeah, I think there's a huge amount of benefits. But firstly, hello, I'm Charlie. I work in the programme team. So we work with Now Teachers once they're in schools and they started their training, and also bridging that gap from the recruitment phase into getting you really well prepared for September and starting. So I'm really pleased to be here. Yeah, thank you for having me. Please do shout out with any questions. Very happy to answer them. But being a Now Teacher, I'm obviously slightly biased. I'm a teacher myself, and I get to work with brilliant career changers day in, day out. I think the huge variety in support that we offer is a real draw to being a Now Teacher. As Katie's mentioned, we have some really phenomenal speakers like Doug Lamov and Tom Bennett, but we also run smaller group support sessions on topics like workload and well-being, managing your time, navigating that tricky change from being an expert and super experienced in something to becoming a novice again and a learner and starting something brand new, where you can of course draw on all those brilliant skills from previous profession. But schools are unique places, they're often quite different to what you've known and done previously, and we at Now Teach can help you to navigate that. We have designated programme managers, so you'd have a programme manager throughout your training year and beyond, and we're absolutely at the end of the phone, at the end of an email. We often get Now Teachers ringing us up and saying, this has happened in school, is this normal? Does this usually happen? Because we've worked with trainees and career changers specifically for such a long time, since 2017 now, we're able to normalise and answer those questions and provide a bit of context. So you'll also have access to a phenomenal network of over 450 Now Teachers now. And one of the things that we do is we actively connect you via various different systems and also one-to-one, so that you can draw on the experiences of others. You're absolutely not alone in sort of taking that leap of faith, and we can connect you to other people who can answer questions and provide extra support. As Talia mentioned earlier, we're not a training provider, so there's never any formal assessment or any sort of explicit commitments. You can absolutely use us as and when you need us, and it often looks quite different dependent on your needs. So some people will want one-to-one wellbeing coaching because they found it really challenging. Others are having a phenomenal support from their school and their training provider, and actually in that first year they may come to a social event in the evening, but really step up the support once they're qualified and they're in an early career teacher position and they haven't got the support from their university and their provider, and that can be when we sort of step up and can help a little bit more. But I'd absolutely say it's driven by your needs, and you can make it what you want.
That's
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, Charlie, it might be interesting as well to add a note on what the kind of time commitment is as well.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. I think I touched briefly on the fact that it's optional. Yeah. There's no minimum expectation in terms of coming to every event that we run. It's absolutely driven by need. There's always one event per month, and it's an evening event and it's on Zoom. We also run a half-termly social where you can come in person, but we won't be on the phone saying, where are you? You need to come to everything. Absolutely not. We have adult-to-adult relationships with our Now Teachers, and we respond to what you need as and when you need it. Of course, we love having you there. Of course, we know the benefit of the network, and we know that over time, being part of a network and having that support from other people who have shared experiences is likely to keep you in the classroom for longer. So we absolutely advocate for using us as much as possible, but please don't think that we're additional extra work. We're here when you need us.
No, that's perfect. We've also had a question through, I think I can answer as well, about whether, oh, excuse me, about whether you have to pay to register with Now Teach, and I think it's worth saying that you don't. It's a charitable organisation, so it's free and the support is free, and it's all about kind of making sure the right people are staying in teaching and like really kind of getting all that kind of career change expertise into the classroom. So the answer is no to that. So we have got lots of questions kind of coming through, so I'm just going to go through. I think like one that I think though would be really good to kind of answer like at the top, and Katie, I think it'd be really interesting to get a kind of your steer on this as well, about how you prepared in the summer for starting teacher training, and also Charlie, maybe after Katie's spoken, you could speak a bit about the kind of what happens in the summer before you start your teacher training with Now Teach as well. So Katie, I wonder if that's something you could speak to.
Yeah, sure. Actually, my summer was a little bit chaotic because I actually applied to be a maths teacher originally, and I think because I hadn't worked in chemistry for so long, I thought maths is something that you use quite regularly, and that would be much more straightforward. And I signed up for it, got the whole subject content thing, and then panicked and threw it all out of the window and said, no, I'm a chemist. So I actually had to spend summer trying to find a school that could look after me as a chemistry teacher, which wasn't that hard actually, thank goodness. But because I didn't have that confidence, I did do a subject knowledge enhancement course, which they're free and they're online, and you can do, there's a window that you have to complete them in. You can do a year, you can do 6 months. I think I did an 8-week part-time, just sort of top up sort of version 1. So there's lots of options. You can sign up for one of those once you've been accepted on a course. So you can't do it before you register to teach or get a place for teaching, but you can do it once you've got that done. So I spent a lot of my summer just making sure that my knowledge was correct, remembering stuff that I'd long since forgotten, and just sort of making sure I chilled out a little bit as well in between that, because yeah, I knew it was going to be hard, because you do pretty much hit the ground running. So I did a school-based route, so obviously I was in school most of the time, and depending on your level of confidence, I was very confident in front of the students. It was just my subject knowledge that I wasn't 100% confident with. So I did get into the teaching quite quickly, because I didn't have the behaviour management issues that I would have done had I not been a cover supervisor, for example. But you can, that comes at your pace, depending on your own confidence. But yeah, so I spent it checking my subject knowledge and taking a breather, because I knew it was going to be full on.
Perfect, thank you. Charlie?
Yeah, lots of that.
Yeah, lots of that. I don't know if it's something like conference and things like that would be interesting.
Absolutely, yeah, loads of sound advice there from Katie. Yeah. But just to build on that, like once you sort of are ready to come across the program side of things and ready to sort of really get stuck in and get started thinking about September, you'll have access to an onboarding hub, an online part of our website. It has lots of recommended resources, case studies, so you can learn more about other Now Teacher experiences. It's broken down by a variety of different themes, like things that we've learned over time might be a challenge for a career changer, things like navigating that change from expert to novice, perfectionism, like learning when good is good enough, and that's really hard and takes a lot of time, but we've got reading and resources around those, perfectionism as well, and lots of other topics online. But we also run events, some in person, some online, during that sort of period of time between committing to teaching and starting in the classroom. We've done things like an introduction to lesson planning, so some key skills. We've got resources on navigating IT in schools, the different IT systems you might come across. We run a fabulous annual conference, which we just had at the tail end of August, and Katie was a brilliant panelist for us. And some of those sessions are on like building relationships in new communities, time management in schools. We had a fabulous session with Doug Lemov, who talked a lot about teaching strategies from his Teach Like a Champion book, which I'd absolutely recommend you have a look at. It's super duper practical, loads of great ideas that you can kind of pick up off the page and try in school tomorrow. I can see Katie nodding, so it might be one that's on your bookshelf as well. But there's lots of recommendations in there of reading, resources, events online and in person, and also options to connect to others. So once we sort of know where you're going to be teaching, which schools, which local areas, we'll start to connect you on WhatsApp and Tent, so that you can start talking to each other. Because as we've sort of mentioned previously, your experience of training to teach is likely to be quite different dependent on who you're training with, the school that you're in. Like sometimes resources are different, like different providers recommend different resources, and we find that now teachers do share those and they can use them in their assignments throughout the year. You might have a reading list before you start in school from your university. Sometimes now teachers will share them with each other so that you can see, oh, okay, this sort of school-based route is offering X, Y, and Z before their trainees go in, and you can have a look at that, have a nosy, and pick out resources that are relevant to you.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. And I think we've had a question in about part-time training options. So Katie, I wonder if you could speak about that. I'll read the question out, and then maybe you could speak to it a bit from your experience. So can you explain a bit more about your part-time training option? And do you think it's theoretically feasible to maintain a current part-time job for financial or other reasons whilst doing your training part-time?
Okay, yes, I didn't have a part-time job alongside my part-time training, but I worked or trained with other people who did do that. I think the most successful of which was an art trainee, actually, and she was always in school 4 days a week, and 2 of them were as a technician and 2 of them were as a trainee teacher. So that was an option that worked particularly well. A lot of people who do the part-time route do also maintain a part-time job, so I think it is manageable. I can't speak to any experience of it. Like I say, I didn't work while I trained, but there are becoming more and more part-time options available. They're not widespread at the moment, but they are becoming much more popular. And I have been fortunate enough to maintain the part-time option whilst working as well. So I've actually stayed on at my initial training school as a part-time teacher. So yeah, the options are out there, and it is manageable. The teaching workload is high. Certainly when you're training in your first year, it's very high. So I think if you were to, personally, I feel if you were going to do another job, it would either need to be something totally different and rest your brain completely, or be, supportive of what you are doing in the other days of the week.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. And I think somebody else did ask about whether teaching part-time is an option on completion of training. And yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. Like there are those options out there now. They are obviously a bit trickier to come by than full-time options, but in terms of part-time or like flexible working teacher training options, that's something that also we can support with. If people are interested in that, it's definitely worth having a conversation with us and seeing what's available in your area, and hopefully we can help out and just really find what's going to be right for you. We understand that career changes have more kind of unique circumstances. Everyone's a little bit later in life, maybe you've got kids, they can't just move to another part of the country because they've got lives and mortgages and like all of those things. So so we work quite hard to try and match you as best as we can in the area that you're in as well. Katie, we've had a question direct to you, and this one is really interesting. So what would you say is the best skill, other than your chemistry knowledge, from your non-teaching life that you have taken into school with you?
Oh, that's really hard, isn't it? I think working with a lot of now teachers, everybody has a very different skill. So whatever mine is going to be very different to what anybody on this call might be. But I think I've thought about this actually, and it does stem back to when I was actually a sort of active chemist, if you like. I left chemistry to go and work in health and safety. And my manager at the time in chemistry said, if you hadn't said that you were looking at something else, I might have suggested it, not because you're a bad chemist, but because you're a better people person. And he said your career progression within the sort of chemistry world will falter because your skill set is actually your people skills, not, you know, relative to your chemistry skills. I wasn't a bad chemist, I don't think. But I think that's the best skill that I've brought across, is that ability to sort of talk to different people at different levels, interact with people from lots of different backgrounds. So I did do some sort of adult training as well during my career. When I was in health and safety, I had to train adults in health and safety, which weirdly is actually harder than teaching students, teenagers, chemistry, because a room of 120 adults aren't interested in health and safety, not at all. So yeah, just that sort of people skills and maybe a bit of resilience, I think. I think as an older person, that resilience that you build up in your working life is vital for surviving teaching.
Yeah, perfect. And I think, Charlie, you probably attest to this as well. There's such a variety of people that come through to our programme who have just come from so many different backgrounds that can only be valuable to take that into the classroom.
Absolutely, and it looks different on sort of different days. Like sometimes it's really specific to archaeology and like a particular lesson that you're leading, and sometimes it's actually that ability to bounce back, because some days are really tricky, aren't they? Like sometimes children can be really difficult. Sometimes navigating those adult relationships in school can be really hard. But bouncing back, taking on feedback, being able to reflect on and make a change, I think are huge skills that now teachers bring.
And even things as specific as, I think I heard someone having a conversation the other day about the type of school trips that career changers think of and are able to run are just a bit different. And it's kind of that kind of like, that kind of conceptual thinking, really interesting.
Bringing children into your law firm so they can learn more about sort of professional lives. Like we've absolutely had now teachers do those sorts of things and bring in external speakers that schools haven't previously used before and set up other opportunities. Sometimes we find that now teachers move into sort of roles as careers lead so that they can help with applications to university as well.
Brilliant. So we've had another question about the scheme. So the question is, and I think I can probably answer this to start with, and then Charlie, there might be a couple of things you want to add. So is demand high for a place in your scheme, and if so, what proportion of applications are successful? So what I would say is there is a reasonable amount of demand, but it's not really about kind of applying and getting kind of accepted, rejected. That's kind of not what we're trying to do here. What we're trying to do is just find the people who could really can really benefit and who are like the right fit. If you fill in the kind of registration for our program, we are not assessing like whether you are suitable to be a teacher or not. We're assessing whether you could really benefit from the support that we offer, because we are very specifically working with career changers and people who are coming from like a very different backgrounds and who are coming from outside of education as well. So it's all about how we ensure that we're supporting the right people and that they're really getting the benefit. So once you've kind of checked that you're eligible for everything and you're getting through to the point where you're having a consultation with us, that it's quite high likelihood that then you would move on to be in our program. But yeah, so it's not just want to reiterate, it's not like a pass-fail thing. It really is about best fit thing, because I think Charlie and Katie will probably agree. Like, we're trying to create it's a cohort of like-minded people who are at a similar kind of life stage, and who, you know, when you're on your course, your university course or your school placement or whatever that is, you might be placed with lots of kind of 22, 23-year-olds who are very different, who are experiencing work for the very first time, have very different challenges, and I think it's nice for career changers to be able to connect with people who are at a similar stage. And I think, Charlie, you definitely agree that that's like one of the core things here.
Absolutely, yeah, it's that network and that community, the people of a similar demographic, a similar experience, who can draw on each other for support over time.
Yeah, I want to, can I chip in there? Sorry, just because I think there are lots of challenges to being a career changer and into teaching. And one of them is definitely training alongside freshly qualified 21-year-olds and their lack of worldly knowledge.
Yeah,
you know, that is quite a difficult hurdle some days. So having people at a similar stage in their lives and careers, although we still cover quite a wide range of ages in our teach, it is really handy to just think, you know, have someone else say, it's not you, it's okay. It's quite valuable.
Yeah, and I find sort of working with my mentor who's 22 quite challenging too. Let's talk about ideas for how we can develop that relationship. Yeah, absolutely agree, Katie.
Yeah, all those things are entirely relevant and completely legitimate to feel. There'll be so many emotions and kind of frustrations that you'll have that are so different when you're 22 to when you're 42, 52. So yeah, it's really kind of capturing that. I mean, so Charlie, I know we both qualified to be teachers when we were very young. That was kind of our first thing. And then, but now, I don't know if you'd agree with this, if I went into teaching now, having had a different career, the way I'd approach it would be so different. And the way I'd feel about it would be really different too. Yeah. Great. So, Katie, I just wonder if I'd ask you a couple of things about your experience, kind of like specifically in school. So, one question we get all the time is about behaviour management, like how you found that, and I think really relevant to you because of your really contrasting experiences between the two environments that you're in. So, I was just wondering if you could speak to that and how you found it and how you kind of adapted your approach.
Okay, yeah, so like I said, prior to teacher training, I was a cover supervisor, and that was the very definition of a baptism of fire, I think, is the teacher's not there. They throw you in a room as an adult and expect you to be able to handle, you know, 30 teenagers who know you're not their real teacher, know you don't know where they're supposed to sit or anything like that. So I think my best piece of advice for behaviour management is that you will find your own style, but the way to find your own style is to talk to a variety of people while you're training. And if teachers love nothing more, it's sharing their views on how you can handle different situations. Teachers are really happy to talk to you about how they would handle it. I've got some teachers that will say to me, right, you just need to yell at them for 5 minutes and then they'll soon calm down. I've got others that say stand silently for 5 minutes and then they'll calm down. You've got everything in between. And as you can probably tell, because I like to talk, I struggled with the being quiet for 5 minutes. It felt like the longest time ever. Actually, weirdly, it's effective. You only have to do it the 5 minutes once, and then it becomes 2 minutes, and then it's 20 seconds, and then it's 5 seconds. And it's, you know, so for me, if someone had told me that before I went into teaching, I'd have said, rubbish, I need to shout at them and they will sit down and they will do as they're told. It doesn't work like that. And actually, the other weird piece of advice I had about behaviour management was on my training course. We had a voice coach come and talk to us. And she said, and initially I thought, how rude, but it's true. She said, men can shout, women can't. Because if women shout, they get all screechy and high-pitched, whereas men's voices deepen when they shout and it's much more effective. And I've read about that since, and it weirdly goes back to sort of parenting sort of stereotypes, I suppose, where the father figure is far more intimidating. Wait till your father gets home and all that sort of stuff. Than the mum figure. The mum figure is not the shouting doesn't work well. So there is like a weird sort of history to that. But it is quite true. If I listen to other teachers, if I listen to female teachers shouting, the kids aren't interested. So yeah, behavior management is something that you will learn and you will be well supported with on your training. Because obviously, especially for career changes, you've got so much knowledge, and your subject knowledge will come back very quickly, actually. The behavior management is usually the piece of the puzzle that is lacking, and you'll get a lot of support in schools with that.
Perfect, thank you. I am going to have to wrap up because we are coming close to time and I just need to round it off, but thank you so much, Katie. It's been really insightful having you and just really interesting to hear about your experience and also the kind of the contrast in your two experiences as well, and also a bit more information on a part-time offer as well. It's just really good to kind of get all that kind of colour and background, so thank you so much for joining us. And also Charlie, thank you. It's been really helpful to hear more about the programme, and hopefully that's been really informative for everyone here. And it just adds a bit more about like how we are quite unique in our offer and what we do, and how we are really looking to help people like transition out of their current careers into teaching, and do something a little bit different, but also be really bespoke and really kind of cater to what the needs are. So yeah, so we are coming close to time. You'll see a poll, and that's going to pop up on your screen there. So I'm just going to leave that up whilst I do kind of the last bit, and you can answer that. Yeah, so just to complete that, while I reiterate, our specialist team really are here to help. There were lots of questions kind of popping up that we weren't able to get to, but it'd be great if you wanted the opportunity to kind of ask those and have them answered, and we can definitely do that. So you should definitely draw upon their extensive knowledge. So fill out our registration form that's on the website, and we can go from there. So lastly, thank you so much everybody for joining us today and being a really engaged audience. It's been great. Really hope that you found it informative, and it was fantastic again to hear from Charlie and Katie, whose first-hand experience has been really invaluable. So I'm going to say thank you now, and please go and have a good rest of your day. All right, bye now.